Hello viewer, I am Ask, and I am the creator of my stupidly big LittleBigPlanet 3 adventure level, the LittleBigPlanet Raid. I'm here to explain the inner workings of this adventure to help you continue to complete and enjoy this experience. To start off with, we have the very first encounter in the raid. To complete the Plates of Sorrow encounter, the player must keep 3 plates in the area from falling into the lava below for a select period of time. To keep the plates away from the lava, jump onto the plate. While on the plate, keep notice of the timer above it, because once the timer is completed, the player will be killed. To avoid getting disintegrated, simply jump off the plate before it's full. To reset the timers on the plates, just grab and hold the glowing button on the lava totem to the right. To summarize, jump on each of the plates, jump off when the timer is nearly full, reset the timer on all 3 plates, and repeat till completion. The blacksmith is one of the 3 encounters the player needs to beat to bypass the barriers in heaven. To beat this encounter, the player will need to forge a sword, throw it at the glowing object at the top of the slope, and damage the boss at the end of the caves. To forge the sword needed to progress, the player needs to forge a sword, shape it, and refine it before it can be used to access the caves. To forge the sword, the player needs to head to the left to access the forge. Grab the Grabinator power-up, grab the metal in the corner, and place it in front of the forge. After the sword is forged, grab it and head out of the forge. Next, the player needs to bring the sword to the anvil on the right. Hold the sword in front of the anvil, and grab the newly shaped sword once it appears. After grabbing the rusted sword, head towards the top of the slope, and throw the sword into the thing near the top. Finally, grab the refined sword and throw it at the glowing red object at the top of the slope. Now that you're in the cave, run and swing your way through the cave before you're burned by the lava flowing in from the left. At last, now you're at the end of the cave. It's time to damage the blacksmith. Damage the blacksmith by shooting him with the paintinator. To summarize, create the sword, shape it at the anvil, refine it near the top, throw it at the block, navigate through the cave, and damage the blacksmith. The Guardian is another one of the 3 encounters the player needs to beat to bypass the barriers in heaven. To beat this encounter, the player needs to travel into portals and grab and hold the object corresponding to the riddle that briefly appears on screen. Afterwards, the player needs to resist against the Guardian. This encounter is mechanically very simple, just find the objects corresponding to the most recent message you've seen. For reference, here are all 24 objects with their riddles attached. Anyways, after finding 2 to 3 objects, a message saying, "The Abyss welcomes you," will appear. When this happens, exit the portal you're currently in, and drop down the newly opened pit in the Abyss. Once in, button mash the button corresponding to the message on screen. After enough button mashing, you will be sent back to the hub to repeat the process again. To summarize, find 2 to 3 objects with the riddles you are given, drop down into the pit, and mash the corresponding button. The power plant is the last of the 3 encounters the player needs to beat in order to bypass the barriers in heaven. To beat this encounter, enter all 4 of the rooms in the power plant and destroy each of the generators at the end of each challenge. After destroying all 4 generators, cross the bridge and plant a bomb on the main generator for the power plant. Since there are no real mechanics in this encounter, I'll briefly go over each room. In this area, you will be tasked with climbing to the top of a massive wiring circuit, while also hiding under cover to avoid lethal waves of energy raining down from the top. In this area, the player will need to ride an elevator while shooting red objects in order to keep the elevator from overheating. In this area, quickly navigate through the trash heaps in order to get to the generator. Once in the vents, bump into the grate 3 times to get through. Knock over the grate in your path and shoot the 3 objects into the plasma to cause the shield covering the generator to go offline. In this area, carefully navigate the death traps in this tightly packed area to destroy the generator. After destroying the 4 generators, cross the newly formed bridge to reach the main generator. After entering the wormhole, plant the bomb and quickly exit the area. Finally, open the door while keeping yourself safe from the oncoming corrupted. To summarize, enter all 4 rooms, destroy the generators, blow up the main generator, and survive. After making your way inside the abandoned test chamber, you will come face to face with the Evermind prototype. To beat this encounter, keep all the systems up and running by preventing the meters from emptying. After grabbing the breaker room key off the floor, the prototype will wake from its slumber and the encounter will start. Throughout the encounter, you will need to frequently check the systems board on the left to keep track of all the constantly draining meters. To keep the heating and cooling meters up, you will need to hit the button next to the furnace. When you hit the button, one meter will rise and the other will fall. So routinely hit the button in between moving to locations to keep both meters raised. To keep the ventilation up, simply open or close the vents with the vent controls to the left and right of the Evermind prototype. To prevent the engine meter from lowering, get rid of any corrupted that wanders into the room by opening up the trapdoor below it with the button to the left. Close the trapdoor after the corrupted has been disposed of. Lastly, when you start to hear a loud humming, run straight to the prototype's chamber. When you're there, drop down to the control panel below by grabbing the grate on the floor, and then turn the lights off and on to stop the humming. After surviving for enough time, the wires to the prototype's lifeline will overheat and its attack will come to an end. To summarize, open and close the furnace routinely, open or close the vents frequently, get rid of the invading corrupted, and turn off the lights when you hear humming. It's time for the final fight of the LittleBigPlanet Raid. To beat this encounter, journey into the domains of the Grand Palace to dispel shadows and memorize crystals to take down this man-made deity. To start the encounter, get up to the entrance of the Grand Palace and obtain the silencer. Equipping the silencer allows you to destroy stone crystals. This will come in handy later, but for now, shoot the crystal to start the encounter. Once the encounter is started, you will need to enter 3 different areas and get rid of the Evermind's shadows. The 3 areas in question are the garden, the dungeon, and the temple. In the garden, make use of the illuminator to light your way through the abyss. In the dungeon, find a way through to the other side of the gate by going through the prison cells, and then swing your way through the dungeon. Lastly, in the temple, navigate your way past the underwater traps by swimming. At the end of every area, you will banish one of the Evermind shadows, and you will get shown 3 crystals, with one of those crystals being lit up. Remember the position of the lit up crystals you encounter. After banishing all 3 shadows, the Evermind will allow you to enter the Grand Palace. Once you enter the palace, you will be granted access to a new weapon, the Stalker. This weapon will allow you to shoot at the Evermind to dish out damage. Just stand under the Evermind and hold R1. During the DPS phase, the Evermind will attempt to wipe you out by conjuring up a spell. When the Evermind starts this process, you will have to stop him as soon as possible. Now this is when the Silencer comes into play. You will have to use the Silencer to shoot a crystal that corresponds to one of the lit up crystals in the 3 areas that you traversed through earlier. Here's a visual to help you understand what I'm getting at. If you manage to shoot the correct crystal, the Evermind spell will be cancelled out and you can continue to deal damage. After you deal enough damage, the Evermind will kick you out of the palace. From there, just rinse and repeat as always. I should note that each DPS phase will get increasingly more difficult, so get to shooting quick. To summarize, journey into all 3 areas. Memorize the lit up crystals, DPS the Evermind with the Stalker, and shoot the crystals you memorize with the Silencer to stop the spell. After successfully defeating the Evermind, you will be taken to the finale of the LittleBigPlanet Raid, a one-on-one duel with the Evermind in this climactic clash. Because there are no mechanics, I'll give a very brief rundown on how to fight. To deal damage to the moon-enchanted Evermind, equip the False Heaven's Razor at the front of the cathedral. Once equipped, use the weapon to slash at the Evermind from up close. In the second phase, continue the fight with the False Heaven's Razor and use a newly acquired Shield of Light to block attacks. To summarize, attack with the False Heaven's Razor and block attacks with the Shield of Light. Now that I've explained all the main encounters in the raid, I'll spend the last portion of this video explaining how you can access the super secret boss in the raid. You can start this quest by grabbing a yellow button near the entrance to the Guardian encounter. After grabbing the button, a passageway will open up near the elevator. Jump into the passageway to start the quest. This quest will require you to find a swan-marked object in the previous 5 levels. Here's where they are and how to get them. After grabbing all 5 swan-marked objects, you will be given a code. Input this code at the summit to gain access to the secret boss. Whether you're playing through the raid yourself or just some random schmuck that came across this video, thank you for watching. This video is actually both my first scripted video and my first properly voiced video. I hope to get more scripted content out at some point, so consider tuning in next time to watch me ramble on about some random anime, character, or ship that I hyperfixate way too much on. Anyways, I've been Ask, and I will now return to my crypt.